So, we welcome back to the show Newt Gingrich, former House Speaker, Fox News contributor, great friend and mentor. Newt, I just want to pause a minute. I mean, part of the discussion with you is going to be how the Republicans can win in the midterms come November. I would just say right now, even with high gasoline prices, the economy, the stock market, wages, productivity, I think things look pretty darn good. It's only the springtime also.
Well, look, I think that the liberal elites are in for an enormous shock this fall. I personally guess that we're going to pick up a substantial number of seats in the House and several seats in the Senate, that people are going to be in a state of total shock when it's over, and that it will lock down the degree to which Trump really is in the process of changing the country, probably more than any president since FDR, and that the depth of the fight is something we have not really seen since Jefferson set out to destroy the Federalists. And you look all across, and I mean, this is, as a historian, I think that's the most accurate parallel. Jefferson in 1796 sets out literally to methodically break the Federalist Party, which was the dominant establishment party. He invents the Democratic Republican Party, which is still today the oldest single political institution in the world. And they just go out methodically. And remember, the word gerrymander comes from Eldridge Gerry of Massachusetts, trying to design a district they can survive in as a Federalist, and even in 1812. So I see Trump right at the edge. He's not there yet, but he is right at the edge of having a victory of such stunning proportions this fall that it becomes historically one of the 3 or 4 big break moments in American history.
Well, listen, you know, among other things, draining the swamp, which I think is a great issue, he's taken down 345,000 federal jobs already. I mean, that's a huge number. And I think that's very important. Now, if the GOP can take its cue from President Trump, let's talk about this. I mean, 80-20 type issues. Voting, you know, photo ID for voting. You've got to show citizenship. Okay, that's one of the issues. Males not allowed to play in female sports games or female locker rooms. That is still an important issue, I think. The redistricting, these Democratic states like Virginia just got overturned. Meanwhile, redistricting is favoring the red states where the population is growing because the blue states are all socialist and high tax, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I think these are very important issues come November. And on top of that, the economy. I think the war and the economy are going to be sleeper issues and big positives if the GOP knows how to market them.
I think that's right. And look, you know, when we did the contract with America and won a majority for the first time in 40 years, we did it by studying Ronald Reagan, because Reagan was the best. He'd been a former Democrat. He was the best communicator in the Republican Party in my lifetime. Now we're in the same boat. Donald Trump, who used to be a Democrat, is a communicator, if anything, on a better scale than Reagan because of his intensity and his energy level. And if the Republican Party will just model off of Trump and recognize that, for example, when Trump during the State of the Union turned at the Democrats who refused to stand and refused to applaud for parents being able to protect their children, and he said, you guys are just crazy. Every Republican ought to understand, these are not socialists, they're crazy. And Donald Trump has given you the language to use. Go right down the list. And I think that you are on the edge of truly a historic election this fall in which the Republicans have a huge advantage because the Democrats are at war with the American people. You did a great job just now. Issue after issue after issue, we're there on the 15 or 20% side. And I think if we do this correctly, we will have profoundly shifted power in America, just as, candidly, when we won in 94 and then for the first time since 1928 got reelected in 96, we shifted power in the House permanently, and it's never fully gone back to the Democrats, even when they've temporarily held power.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Look, I think Democrats want open borders. Democrats want to take out ICE. They don't care about that. Democrats are still talking about, men and women's locker rooms or men and women's sports. They're still talking about that. Democrats don't want to vote on photo ID and citizenship. Democrats would have raised taxes by $4 or $5 trillion. Every single one of them voted against the one big beautiful bill that cut taxes, which have, if I may, those tax cuts have helped boost working folks' pay. That's what these numbers that came out today show. In the last year, the working folks, Newt, the so-called production workers or non-supervisory, their wages and hours worked combined, so-called income proxy, have beaten the supervisory numbers, okay? That's what's happened here. The blue collars have beaten the white collars. I should put that in the riff. It's a very important point in Trump's America. Drill, baby, drills, we are the dominant energy supplier now, okay? That's another one. And by the way, I don't want to forget the trade, because fair and reciprocal trade, that's very important. You'll see more of that in the Chinese discussion coming up right now. I mean, really, these are great issues. All you have to do is make sure the rank and file GOP works with them. Trump was giving them their talking points at the State of the Union, as you pointed out, Newt. He gave them their talking points. Now the question is, will they talk about their talking points?
Well, and you cannot allow the liberal news media to try to get you off the balance,
right,
or to try to get you off issues, because they're, of course, going to do everything they can to protect the Democrats.
All right. So, Newt, do I color you in as an optimist? I just want to check that.
What?
Newt, do I color you in as an optimist for the midterm elections?
Oh, yeah. I'm very much an optimist. I'm tempted, actually, I don't normally bet, but I'm tempted to go bet on the Republicans keeping the House, just because the odds are so good right now.
All right, good. Terrific stuff. Terrific stuff. There's a whole menu. This segment will go down in history. Terrific stuff. Newt Gingrich, as always, sir, thank you ever so much.
Take care.
All right. Now, let's just switch gears and go back to the Iran story.